Every single year, I like to pick the most underrated player on every NBA team heading into the upcoming season. Now, I also tend to do the most overrated list as well, but frankly, I don't love all the negativity associated with it. I don't like being that negative, and I definitely don't like the heat that I get back for it. It's just not what I want to do, nor is it something that I want to deal with. So it's just kind of a lose-lose, and I think everyone should just have fun with basketball. There's probably a better way to say it, but I don't have the trademark for that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video. Check us out over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you'd like to enjoy this as an audio-only experience. Trying to hit 150K over here, so that subscription would be much appreciated. Also, be sure to check out the newest deep dive over on the Deep Dives with Rusty Buckets channel. It is about Shaquille O'Neal, a hater manifesto, going over his place in the NBA landscape, both as a player, but especially as a commentator. I'd really appreciate it if you checked it out. I think it's one of the better scripts that I've ever written. Some of the best editing of my writing that Rudy has ever done. Just a great script all around. Please check that out. Thank you. I do want to make this quick disclaimer up top. I use per 36 quite a bit throughout this video. Please understand that I know that per 36 is a speculative stat. I think the function of per 36 is contextualizing volume relative to minutes. Like if I told you that someone was scoring 9.4 points per game in 14.7 minutes a game, you can kind of tell how impressive that is. But if you see that he puts up 23.2 points per 36 minutes, it puts it into a better context. Or, for example, seeing that 3.7 three-point attempts in 12 minutes per game gets up to 10 three-point attempts per 36. I believe that per 36 is useful for understanding the context of what a player is doing within the time they have, and that is it. The dude averaging 9 and 14 minutes isn't necessarily destined to be a 20-point per game scorer as a starter, but maybe, who knows? Also, yes, both those stats were not random. They are from players on this list. I will add, I usually treat this as a filler video. You know, it's off-season content. We're shameless this time of year. But for some reason, despite it not being at all economical with my time, I went really hard on the research for this one to ensure that I made the best pick possible. Anyway, so I've been talking for way too much. Cleveland Cavaliers, Darius Garland. I am not going to go into a whole spiel about Darius's abilities. I just think he's gotten a bad rap because of playoff performances where he was dealing with an injury. The 23-24 season was a nightmare for Darius in many ways. He dealt with a ton of injuries, including breaking his jaw in December. In this year's playoffs, he injured his toe while he was getting called soft for not playing on it, just for him to play on it, not play good, and re-injure it, resulting in him getting surgery that will make him miss the start of next season. The one time Darius was healthy for the playoffs, his first time ever there, he averaged 1 less point per game, 2.7 less assists, and 0.7 more turnovers on 2.1% worse true shooting than in the regular season. That is a drop in stats, but pretty minimal for a first-timer and a small guard at that in the playoffs against a Knicks team with a good handful of perimeter defenders. Everything else, he's been hurt, and I think people have been deeply unfair to him as a result of that. For the Boston Celtics, Sam Hauser. Sam, he's an easy one. I always appreciate consistently good shooters who are capable enough at other areas of the game. He's a solid defender. He doesn't make many mistakes. He did have a bad playoffs this year, so it's not the most glowing time to praise him, but the dude is good as hell for 15 to 20 minutes per game in a rotation. For the New York Knicks, I went with Guerschon Yabusele. Yabusele is a 6'8" power forward / center with a 7'1" wingspan. He left the NBA for a while and came back as a far more complete offensive player. He averaged 11 points, 5.6 rebounds, 1.9 of them being O boards, and 2 assists, shooting 38% on just under 4 three-point attempts per game and 61.6% from 2 on 4 attempts as well. He played a lot of small ball 5 last year. I don't know that that's his best use, especially on defense. It's kind of hard to say where he is overall as a defensive player because he has his moments and he certainly has the right body for it, but he was not in an ideal situation at all last year. On bad teams, it's harder to be good on defense, both for lack of talented teammates and the drive that comes from thinking you can win. In New York, with great defenders around him, I think he can provide a ton of versatility and be a positive defender. I said the number one thing they need to pursue in the offseason is a forward with a legit three-point shot. While Yabusele wouldn't have been my first pick, he is a pretty phenomenal option for his price point of just $6 million a year for 2 years. For the Indiana Pacers, Pascal Siakam. You know, I think most people's rankings for Pascal Siakam would have gone up after this year's playoffs. It only makes sense, but I still feel like he somehow came out of them underrated. I called him the most underrated star in the league early into the playoffs, and I think that remains true. I'm a big fan of consistency, and Pascal is exactly that. Siakam in this year's playoffs scored 15 or more in all but 2 of his games, and scored 30 or less in all but 2 games. He shot under 40% from the field 3 times and over 60% from the field 5 times. He was always steady, easily the most steady element of the Pacers, and that's not even mentioning his excellent defense, which is often usually underappreciated. My honorable mention is Jay Huff. I can't believe the Grizzlies traded him for so little. What a dumb decision that was. Anyways, for the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm going with Gary Trent Jr. Gary can flat out shoot the fuck out of the ball, and he has always done that. A career 39% shooter on 6.3 attempts per game. In the playoffs this year, across 5 games, he averaged 18.8 points per game, 2.6 steals, and he shot 50% from 3 on 8.8 attempts per game. I thought this would warrant a pay bump this offseason, but once again, he signed for the minimum. He's not the best defender. Sometimes he can take a questionable shot or two. His efficiency inside the arc is pretty bad, but usually dudes who are this lights out so consistently can get more than the minimum. He's also hot. For the Detroit Pistons, I went with Isaiah Stewart. Beef Stew is entirely known for his hands and not his basketball ability, which is a shame because he is legit the best defensive backup 5 in the entire league, and I'm not sure it's even close. Maybe Donovan Clingan or Robert Williams, maybe John Isaac, but I think I'm still going to go with Beef Stew. He is just dominant on that end. He averaged 1.4 blocks in 19 minutes per game last year, which comes out to 2.5 per 36. Opponents are 3.2 points worse with him on the floor. Now, he is a pretty big negative on offense, so there's a trade-off, and that's why he's only a 20-minute per game guy, but he is going to put your team in hell in those 20 minutes. For the Orlando Magic, Desmond Bane. Lights out three-point shooter. Since his rookie season, he shoots 40.7% on 7 three-point attempts per game. In the 23-24 season, he shot 38% on 8.6 attempts. Great percentage, a great volume. He is also pretty damn good inside the arc. Again, besides his rookie year, he shoots 8.7 two-pointers per game while shooting over 50%, 52.5. On top of all of that, he's a nearly 90% free throw shooter, though he does not get to the line all that much. Among his twos are very few mid-range shots, though he does shoot pretty okay from there when he does take them. He's a strong finisher, though, and he had an especially improved float game last year. He's also developed a lot as a playmaker, in large part due to Ja having a lot of absences the last 2 years. He averaged 5.4 assists and 2.4 turnovers over the last 2 seasons. The reason I think Bane is underrated is the reaction to him being traded to Orlando. The amount of people who thought that was a bad trade for the Magic blew my mind. He will fit seamlessly into what the Magic have cooking. He's a 20-point per game guy on nearly 50, 40, 90 splits, a really good secondary playmaker, and a pretty good defender as well. I think he is capable of playing at an all-star level. For the Miami Heat, I'm going with Haywood Highsmith. He is a 6'7" forward whose 3 has become pretty consistent. I suggested in a Little Rusty video that the Miami Heat have no real good shooting development stories, and I shouldn't have said that because also Bam, even though his 3-point percentage still ain't great, he's not great at it. It's better than what it was. But for Haywood, he is a true success story as he has shot 38.8% on 3 attempts per game over his last 2 seasons, averaging 22.7 minutes. His on-off numbers show him having a positive impact on Miami's offense and a negative impact on their opponent's offense to the point where he is overall a plus 2.9. Not a stat sheet stuffer, or highlight maker, but everyone needs a guy like this on their team. For the Chicago Bulls, I'm going with Jalen Smith, a 6'10 power forward slash center who can shoot threes quite well. Now, he had a down year percentage-wise in Chicago last season at 32.7%, but he was at 42.4% next to Halliburton in Indiana. Also good at the rim, a career 74% shooter from 0 to 3 feet, and floater range, a career 50%. He's not a good defender, but a great play finisher who would benefit greatly from high-level playmaking. I think he would be especially fun, like on the Denver Nuggets, for example. The Atlanta Hawks, I'm going to go with Zachary Risachet, a 6'8" small forward. He just feels taller than that. I'm shocked he's not at least 6'10". How can the #1 overall pick be underrated, you say? Well, first of all, his draft class wasn't riddled with top-end talent, so he kind of got shit for being the worst #1 pick or things along those lines. In reality, he's not the greatest #1 pick, and he certainly had just an okay rookie year, but in his last 35 games, he averaged 14.9 points per game on 63% true shooting. He also took over 5 threes a game and shot 42%. He also shot 60% on his twos. He's a shooter first, but also a pretty strong finisher, and he has a decent float game as well. And he's good on defense with reason to believe he'll eventually be great. His upside is a huge swing factor in how Atlanta's season goes. He's a strong play finisher, and he pairs well with Trae Young as a result. Seriously, there is no way he is 6'8", or he's just the only honest guy in the entire NBA. For the Toronto Raptors, I'm going with Ochai Agbaji. I believe he was my pick last year as well. He's a 6'5" shooting guard. He's been up and down in his career, but last season he shot 40% from 3 on 4 attempts per game. He's also a pretty damn solid defensive player, sometimes even really good, and it wouldn't shock me if he was even better in a more competitive situation. He also shot nearly 60% on his 4.4 two-point attempts, so he's effective from everywhere, makes quick and smart decisions, and doesn't really make any mistakes. Not a flashy guy, but the exact type of player every team needs. For the Brooklyn Nets, I am going with Dariq Whitehead, a 6'7" small forward who is an absolute sniper. Though it is with limited sample, he only played 22 games and 246 total minutes, but he shot the hell out of the ball with his limited opportunity. 44.6% from 3 on 74 total attempts last year. He played 20-plus minutes per game in 6 games, and in those games, he averaged 12.8 points and went 23 for 47 from outside, which is 7.8 three-point attempts per game. His three-point attempt volume, when his numbers are bumped to per 36, reaches 10 per game. He is a super prolific three-point shooter in the time that he's gotten. This season will give him a real opportunity to prove he's a shooter like that, and if he is a shooter at that size, has quite a lot of value. He also has a really interesting form. He uses a lot of upper body. It has a lot of kind of long wind up as well, so it kind of looks like a trebuchet like type jump shot, but it's still a quick-ish release in spite of that. It's very weird. You gotta watch it. I don't know how to describe it. It's also worth mentioning that he did this on a squad of very poor playmakers. They just got a bunch of point guards, so that should hopefully help. For the Charlotte Hornets, I couldn't decide between Brandon Miller and Colin Sexton. Brandon, I think people just kind of forget about, which probably just because he's a Charlotte Hornet, but I loved watching him, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do this upcoming season. Now, Sexton, I think, is underrated because of the trade that brought him to Charlotte. I've never been a fan of Colin Sexton, but the man is worth way more than Yusuf Nurkic in 2025 and a second rounder. The Jazz were better on offense and neutral on defense with him in the game. I don't understand how an 18 point per game and 4 assists per game guy on 59% 50% true shooting just gets so devalued to this point. I get it's a bad team, but good lord, dude. For the Washington Wizards, I'm going with Tristan Vukcevic. Yes, you heard that. It's not Vucevic, Vukcevic. 6'10" center with an exceptional three-point shot and mid-range jumper. Last season for the Wizards, he shot 37.3% on 2.9 three-point attempts per game, playing just 14.7 minutes. He also shot 52% from 10 to 16 feet and 78% on long twos. He only played 513 minutes last year, but he was damn effective in them, also shooting 80% at the rim. In the 13 games that he played over 20 minutes, he averaged 16.9 points per game on 65% true shooting. That is pretty fucking excellent. Like, he's one of the players who I knew virtually nothing about researching in this video, and now he's like, I'm watching out for that guy on the Wizards. I think he could be real. For the Oklahoma City Thunder, I'm going with Alex Caruso, a 6'5" point guard through small forward, honestly. Oh yeah, we're moving on to the West now. I know everyone knows that Alex Caruso is good, but I still feel like it's not enough. I truly think Alex is as good as you can possibly be at the game of basketball without being much of a stat sheet stuffer. Every once in a while, he hits you with like a near 5x5 type performance, but for the most part, he's not going to stand out in the box score, but his defense is so great, it makes OKC's already great defense look even more insane. In both the playoffs and the regular season, OKC's opponents were 3.4 points better on offense when he was on the bench. He's just that lockdown. His defensive versatility is out of this world for his size. He had possessions on Jokic that went very well in round 2. On top of that, he's a great passer, and his three ball is very real at this point. He shot 41% on 3.9 attempts per game in the playoffs. I can never praise Alex Caruso enough. For the Houston Rockets, I am always spreading Jabari Smith Jr. propaganda. He's a 6'10" forward/center with a 7-foot wingspan. He is really agile, generally quite present on defense, and he can play both forward spots and be a not so small ball 5. His three is legit, and it feels like it's better than the numbers suggest. He shot 45.5% on 3.1 attempts per game in this year's playoffs. That is hopefully a sign of a career year from outside ahead of him. He also is legit from mid-range. He shoots 45% from 10 to 16 feet for his career, and 50% in this last season. He's also a strong finisher at 70% for his career. He is a good play finisher with a lot of potential to be a great play finisher, and he has some creation ability that could get especially interesting at the 5 against slower-footed bigs. I also desperately want to see an Amen, KD, Jabari, Şengün, Adams lineup from the Rockets. 1 6'8" athletic freak point guard and 4 6'10" guys, and all 5 of them have 7-foot plus wingspans. I want to see it so badly. I have no idea if it'll really be good or not, but I think it's worth trying. For the Los Angeles Lakers, I went with Jake LaRavia. Jake kind of got made fun of for being the first move the Lakers made in an overall disappointing offseason. I don't think it was a terrible one, and some have been a little dramatic about their offseason, but most would agree it's not been super ideal. But I like the Jake LaRavia addition, especially at his price point, and I'm not just saying that because he's probably the best Jacob in NBA history, especially a best white American Jacob. Is Jake LaRavia American? It sounds like he is. Last year for both Memphis and Sacramento, he averaged 7 points, 4 rebounds, 1.4 of those being offensive, 2.4 assists, and 0.9 steals, doing this in 20.4 minutes per game. He also shot 42.3% from 3 on 2.2 attempts per game and 51.3% on 2-pointers. Not the strongest finisher right at the rim, but really good from floater range. He is also a good decision maker, 2.4 assists to 1.3 turnovers. Nothing crazy, but 2.4 in 20 minutes translates to 4.2 per 36. I'm not saying the guy needs to run point at any time, but that's pretty good for a forward who does virtually zero dribbling. Not zero. He does a little bit. He seems like he's a pretty damn connector, and he hits his threes. Now, defensively, he doesn't get glowing reviews, but they're still good. I'll be real, I don't have a great recollection of his defensive impact from the games that I watched last year, but from what I've heard, he's serviceable, and his height and solid foot speed can make him pretty damn good at times. And for the most part, people seem to think he at least tries. He also has real bounce. His float game is super unique. He does a lot of two-handed floaters, which is pretty unconventional, and his handle is actually functional for self-creation from time to time. I'll be real, this guy has JJ Redick player written all over him, a tall shooter who's got defensive and playmaking upside, and for $6 million annually, yeah, I think that's a good swing to make. And JJ loves a white boy with audacity like himself, and you know how much audacity this guy has? For part of last season, he rocked the double shooting sleeves look. Do you know how hard it is to pull off that look? That look is for a select few players throughout history. And I'm not saying he pulls it off, but it's no doubt audacious. He also averages 2.5 offensive rebounds per 36. That's noteworthy. Also 1.7 steals per 36. So I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up towards the top of LA's rotation by season's end. I also think he would benefit a lot from playing with Luka. They could possibly have a good two-man game. I don't know. I really think this guy could be quite a steal. I researched him probably the most out of anyone in this video, and for the most part, the more and more I found, the more I liked. So consider me a stockholder. For the Denver Nuggets, I'm going with Cam Johnson. Cam is well understood to be a good player around the league, don't get me wrong, but I think he really only gets credit for his best attribute, which is his three-point shooting. And make no mistake, it's quite an attribute. Cam's 39% on 7.2 attempts in Brooklyn this year should register as one of the best shooting seasons of the 2020s. But I think the year he had for the Nets has gone under the radar because, well, the Nets. I think people kind of ogle at his shooting numbers. They see he's going to replace MPJ and go, great, good thing he can shoot. But his inside the arc game is a lot more developed than I think people understand, and considerably more developed than Michael's is, to the point that I think it's another huge positive of that deal. First of all, he's a great cutter, which resulted in a lot of easy buckets, and that's on a team that didn't feature many strong point guards. The best point that he played with was Dennis Schroeder. But on top of that, he has done more self-creation inside the arc than ever before. This year, he took more twos per game than he ever did, and he registered his second highest two-point percentage, only slightly below that of his second year, when he took less than half of the volume from this season. 57.8% on twos is quite good, and it comes from all spots. Right at the rim, he shot a career-high 78%, with 20% of his shots coming from there. Now, his floater range and mid-range shots are all around league average, but those are mostly gonna be cut out in Denver. It's not bad that he has it if he needs it, though. He had this career year from two-point range while having a career-low 55.6% of them assisted, which is 10% lower than his career average. He's mostly attacking closeouts, but from time to time, he's even initiating at the top of the key off of the dribble, sometimes receiving screens. He also averaged 3.4 assists, which is a career high. The dude's a great connector, cutter, closeout attacker, and finisher, not just a great shooter. And I fully expect him to have the biggest, most impactful year of his career in Denver this season. For the Los Angeles Clippers, I went with Bradley Beal. Bradley is here because he's a good player. In the last few years, there's been so much baggage, and his contract was such an overpay that I think people began to just think he was outright bad. Bradley Beal is not bad. He has just been massively overpaid with unrealistic expectations paired with it. At the end of the day, he signed the contract and he knew it would result in some pushback, but I really don't understand personally why people direct their anger over a bad contract towards the player. Like, Bradley Beal didn't make the Washington Wizards offer him too much money, and he didn't make the Phoenix Suns trade for him. Both franchises could have made different decisions, and they didn't. That's on them. The fact of the matter is, if Bradley Beal replicated his Phoenix numbers in LA this year, then he will probably be the best contract value scorer in the entire NBA. Not knowing who Beal is, if I told you for $5 million the Clippers landed a shooting guard who over the last 2 years averaged 17.6 points and 4.3 assists on 50, 41, 81 splits, you would say that's a steal. Even if I'm wrong in the theory that I presented in the Clippers video, that he'll play the best defense of his career in this more winning situation, even if he is ass on that end, the kind of scoring and playmaking ability he will provide for that price point is still well worth it. And I don't think he'll be ass on that end personally. His defense was fine when he was competing earlier in his career alongside John Wall, so I think he should be fine now. I get why people hate on Beal, but please don't be silly enough to actually let it taint your image of him as a player. For the Minnesota Timberwolves, I went with Terrence Shannon Jr. I didn't really have a strong pick here for many. I think most of their players are pretty fairly rated. So I went with the guy who averaged 11 points per game in 3 games in the Western Conference Finals over 37 total minutes, meaning he scored nearly 1 point per minute. His 3 was legit. He drove super hard. He had a couple of mid-range shots, or floaters at least, and he got to the line a shit ton, 12 total free throw attempts, and he didn't miss any of them. It's hard to say if this was just a flash in the pan, but against the best defense of the 2020s, scoring nearly a point per minute is nuts. Maybe he had some advantage from being at the bottom of the scouting report, but still. For the Warriors, I'm going with Moses Moody, I guess. I'll be honest, no one on the Warriors is really all that underrated or overrated, so I picked Moody because I still believe in him, but his last run in the playoffs makes it hard to pitch him recently. But, you know, if I had to pick one, which I do, Moody, I guess. For the Memphis Grizzlies, I'm going with Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren is obviously the most well-known Grizzly after Ja, but I don't think anyone pays attention to Memphis when it's not related to Ja, so people don't know how good this dude really is. Yes, he can't rebound. Everyone's made this observation. It stinks, but I believe in taking a player for who they are after a certain point, and especially if who they are is overall very, very good. He just has to play the 4, and you have to get a good rebounder at the 5. It's a workable situation. Let's talk about what he can do, which is be one of the best defenders in the entire NBA. He had his best season from outside since his second year last year, and he's a way more prolific creator in the half court than people seem to think. Only 45% of his 11 two-point shots are assisted, meaning he's creating over 5 shots per game inside the arc. That is incredibly high for a big man. He shoots well from everywhere. 67% at the rim, a phenomenal 52% from floater range, with 41.5% of his shots coming from there, making him one of the most prolific floater/hook shot takers in the entire NBA. Like, on that volume, with a good bit above league average efficiency, that's seriously elite. Jaren regularly bails out Memphis with these shots, and how good on offense were the Grizzlies when Jaren was this lead option? They were the 6th best offense in basketball, and that was with and without Ja. In fact, they were technically a better offense with Jaren as the number 1 scoring option. Without Ja this year, the Grizzlies had a 119.9 offensive rating. With him, they had a 117.6. Now, this isn't some anti-Ja take, because I think Memphis's best chance in the long run includes Ja and Jaren working together as smoothly as possible. And I also don't think Jaren is an ideal first option despite these numbers. But I think most people who you could label as the best defender on the team by a mile, one of the best in the NBA period, as he finished 7th in DPOY voting and made an all-defensive second team, who is on top of that a number 1 scoring option on a top 5 offense in the NBA. I think most would say that dude's got to be a lock for top 15 in the league, top 20 at the minimum. But that doesn't appear to be the case. For the Sacramento Kings, I'm going with Keon Ellis. Keon is a good-ass defender and a damn good three-point shooter on top of it. I think barely playing him was coaching malpractice by Mike Brown, and maybe he didn't deserve to be fired for it, but that was the first thing that popped in my head when he was. As soon as that happened, Doug Christie played Keon more, and eventually started him. The Kings are a damn disaster that is going to get worse before it gets better, so I hope Keon can find himself on a legit contender, because man, could he be a huge contributor in the right role. A defensive dog who shoots 43% from three for his career. I mean, what more do you want? For the Mavericks, I'm going with Najee Marshall. I've gone on my Najee tirade a few times now, basically whenever the Mavericks come up, so I'll make this quick. The guy is an excellent scorer inside the arc. He averaged 13.2 points in 27.8 minutes this year. He averaged 15.6 as a starter, and his averages bumped to 17 per 36. He was actually so good at scoring inside the arc last season that I'm afraid it might be a little bit fluky, and I wouldn't say that if these numbers weren't really good. He shot 73% at the rim, 53% from floater range, with exactly a third of his shots coming from there, which is elite. He shoots 57% from 10 to 16 feet, which is like 15% above league average. And he shot fucking 72.7% on long twos. Now, the volume was nothing on those long twos, and it's not super high on the 10 to 16 foot mid-range shots, but dude truly can't miss inside the arc, especially from floater range and right at the basket. This is all with under 50% of his twos being assisted. He's also a great cutter and target in transition. His three-point shot, unfortunately, ain't so good, but if he had a 38% shooting season like he did in 23-24, paired with what he can do inside the arc, then he could genuinely be like a 17-plus point per game guy for Dallas, and they would really need that. For the Phoenix Suns, Royce O'Neal, same reason as like Sam Hauser and shit in this, like a very reliable 3-and-D guy, plays good defense, hits his threes for a reasonable price. I don't like many players on the Suns, so I'm going to give him that. Okay, I've been pronouncing his name wrong for the longest time. I think I've found the right way. I think I'm going to do it, okay? For the Portland Trail Blazers, Tumani Kumara. Tumani Kumara? Is that right? Probably not. I don't know. I keep fucking it up. 6'8" power forward, 7-foot wingspan, and he is a menace on defense. He is both lengthy, strong, and super athletic. He is a great vertical athlete, lateral athlete. He's incredibly balanced and in control of his body on defense. He doesn't get a ton of stocks, but when he does, they are very loud plays. He can defend 1 through 4 and a good handful of 5s, and there also isn't much variance between those positions. When I say he can defend 1 through 4, I don't mean he can defend points kind of good, and that's passable. No, he can defend 1 through 4, each position at an elite level, ranging from Steph Curry to Zion. On top of that, he shot 37.5% from 3 on 4.6 attempts per game last year. That's pretty phenomenal as a second-year guy who had jump shot concerns early on. He could be a DPOY caliber guy. For the Spurs, Julian Champagnie, he can shoot the hell out of the ball. He reminds me a lot of Alan Crabb before he started to suck. He took just under 6 threes a game this year while shooting 37%, doing so in 23.6 minutes per game, which scales up to 9 threes per 36. His defense is also solid. His utility on offense is limited, but it's probably the best limited skill set to have, and for $3 million annually, that's a fucking steal. For the Pelicans, I'm going with Herb Jones. Herb is one of the best defensive wings of this era. I always say only bigs and some wings should win DPOY. I'm not going to argue about that take right now, but I just am saying that to say I'm also really picky about wings winning it. So let me say this clearly. Herb Jones is absolutely a DPOY caliber guy as a small forward. And for him to get just $20 million a year on his extension blew my mind. In the 20 games he played last year, New Orleans was 7.6 points worse defensively with him off of the floor. Do you know how insane that is. In his last fully healthy season, he also shot 41% from three on top of that. Maybe his health is a concern, which resulted in a lesser payday, but if I was Herb, I wouldn't have left the open market. Maybe his health is a concern, which resulted in a lesser payday and him being more interested in securing long-term money than maximizing his total profitability. But if I was Herb, I would have let the open market decide and my contract just play out with the Pelicans. I really hope New Orleans either turns it around or trades him, because while I hate seeing stars waste their time on unserious teams, I really hate a defender of this caliber being wasted on an unserious team. There's something about great defense on uncompetitive teams that feels like you're just wasting your time more so than offense. For the Utah Jazz, I went with Taylor Hendricks. We're once again ending with a guy who barely played last year. Taylor was super intriguing in his rookie year in Utah. His numbers aren't eye-popping, but he's a super athletic 6'9" forward with a 7-foot wingspan. He's springy and fast. He also shot 37.9% from three on 3.5 attempts. His form looks comfortable. He even hit some movement threes from time to time. He is unbothered by slight contests, and he just seems like a fully legit shooter. The one stat that does stick out as super impressive is his 0.8 block average, which jumps up to 1.3 per 36. He's also a pretty damn good defender, as evidenced by the strong rim protection from a wing. He also has solid steal numbers. If he can start to use his athleticism on the offensive end more and get real starters minutes, he could be a lights out shooter, elite versatile defender, cutter and closeout attacker, and a huge target on the fast break. I think he could be a real gem for them. And I will also give an honorable mention to Kyle Filipowski. Super underrated rookie year, and he was great in the summer league. I honestly think most people just don't know him because they can't tell the difference between him and Lauri Markkanen. Their numbers are the same. They're both tall crackers who shoot the ball. They look kind of similar. What can I say? Anyways, that is it. Shout out to Nick for editing this video, and goodbye.